Hello, my friends, Aisha Landsong, and today I want to talk about capacity and boundaries. And so, capacity, a good definition is like, what's our resourcing today? How tired, how open, how much are we already processing? Like, what's our capacity to learn? What's our capacity to hear something difficult? What's our capacity to feel joy? And boundaries are self-protection and protection of others and respecting other people's boundaries too. So they're a really interesting combination. And often when our capacity is low, we have more trouble negotiating our boundaries. So I'm going to share a story that involves all kinds of intricacy around capacity, mine, the other person's, and respecting my boundaries, their boundaries. And so I'm in Costa Rica right now, but this is back when I was in Mount Shasta, and I was by the lake, and there was a man nearby, and he had his tripod set up and was waiting for the sunset and taking a picture, and he had his dog with him. And I'm chatting with my friend, and we're having a good time, and the lake's so beautiful. And all of a sudden, this really terrible self-protective feeling goes through my body. And it's behind me, but I know he's going to kick his dog. And so just as I'm turning, because I have been kicked by when I was abducted, so it's something it's on my radar. So just as I was turning my head, I was hearing him yell at his dog, and I saw him kick his dog in the ribs, which is where I was kicked. So I felt it through my whole body, and of course it felt terrible. And so, I said something to my friend about how bad that felt, and so we finished our conversation, and I just watched him for a little bit, just kind of checking out, like, what's his capacity to hear that I felt him kick his dog. And so I watched him, and he was enjoying his photography and still, yelling at his dog some. And I just looked inside of him, and I thought, what's his capacity for loving his dog? And obviously he was very mean and has limited resources on how best to communicate and manage a rapport and a relationship with his dog. So I waited for a little bit, and then I decided I'm going to say something, because I know some people feel like, oh, just let people be. But to me, we build culture on letting each other know, like, that hurt, or that wasn't okay with me, or, your perfume is giving me a headache, in, the best way we can say that. So I decided my capacity was high enough. If it didn't go well, I would be able to recover from it. And I chose to go over to him, and I chatted up with him for a while, asked him about his camera, asked him about how his day was going, had some rapport built. And then I said, can I let you know something? And he was interested. He had a kind of a nod yes. And I said, when you kicked your dog, I felt it in my body, and it felt really bad. And I watched his face change, and he's like, oh, he's so sorry for me. Not sorry for his dog, but sorry, like, oh, he kind of apologized. And again, I'm checking my capacity, checking his capacity energetically. And so I went ahead and took it a little bit further, and I said, I'm wondering if there's another way you can communicate with your dog what your needs are. Apparently he was protecting his tripod from not getting knocked over by the dog. And he said, well, she doesn't listen. And I thought, it's good to not listen to an abuser. That those of us who have shut down, hearing what somebody who's aggressive, verbally abusive, physically abusive has to say is a good thing to not listen to sometimes. So of course his dog doesn't listen to him if that's the way he has to communicate. So again, so much of my work in the world is helping people heal their capacity to have a fresh response, to not just pass on generational violence. And so I was again feeling into, like, can I take this a step further, or have I done enough? And he started to shake his head no and kind of put his hand up. So that's his boundary. He was letting me know that he was at capacity with this conversation. And so I just said my goodbyes, wished him well, did a little bow to his dog, and moved on. And years ago, I would have kept pushing past his shaking his head no and having his hand up, and then of course it would have gone badly for me and him. So again, I feel like culture is built on how we teach each other we want to be treated, and getting to do that on behalf of others too. So, sometimes if I see a kid being yelled at, I might give the kid a little wink and just do a heart blessing of like, I see you. You're worth protecting. You're real. You matter. So checking in with our capacity, our boundaries, their boundaries. And what was really valuable for me about this is the feedback from my friend who was watching this whole thing. And she said, I've never seen somebody stand up without being aggressive back. And that was a really big, beautiful thing for her to see. So I just want to encourage you to speak up for yourself, speak up on behalf of those who don't have a voice, whether it's a child or an animal, and let's let each other know what's not acceptable violence, what's not acceptable abuse of one another, because we're all so precious. And when we have the capacity to see that preciousness in another, then we know that we need to take good care with ourselves, and that builds our capacity to have good care for others. Singing to your capacity to protect and care for yourself, and that reminder that listening to somebody who's being aggressive, violent, perpetrating harm, you get to walk away. You get to not even have to be polite of like, explaining why you have to leave. You can just turn and walk away. If you need to make an excuse that keeps you safer, do that, great. So singing to that next time you feel that feeling in your body like, I want out of here, to take action on your own behalf. Shoei